oh,
Got it.
to cover the entire London Marathon. So it's a way to use animation to try to create an image of a very large mass event, which is composed out of a very large number of very diverse individuals. So you use this technique to combine them into one image. So everyone is different together. So an image that kind of retains people's individual image, but at the same time joins them all together.
I seem to remember you playing a different version of this at that animation club event.
There is another version, but it's not as successful, but I can show you. Where's the other one I did?
I think it was a faster one as well, but I might be misremembering.
I'm not sure there is a faster one, but there is another one which is a more ambitious. Oh, is it this one? Oh, I think it's this one. There is another. Oh, here we are. So
what Richard did was, well, I mean, you must have hired 26 people to do each mile of the marathon, and we'd walk along and take 20-second video clips as people passed by.
Yeah, it was a sort of a ridiculously ambitious thing. This is another test I did the previous time, but I really don't know whether this is going to look any good.
Well, that looks pretty good.
Over Zoom.
It's a bit jittery over Zoom, but
yeah.
Oh, I like that.
I don't think it's as good quality anyway, as it was a much more kind of open-ended experiment to see what I could do with the footage. But I suspect I still need to do another shoot of the London Marathon next year. And then the big challenge with the London Marathon is that the last 250 meters is inaccessible to the public. So the plan is to get someone to actually run the marathon and record the last 200 or so meters actually from the track. And there's no other way that you can get access to the last couple of hundred meters of the London Marathon. Access to the track is owned by the BBC, and they will not, they won't even talk to me or probably anyone. So Richard, it has to be done completely guerrilla style.
That's proper filmmaking, that really is.
I think so.
You could have somebody hand off a GoPro to them in the last mile so they don't have to carry it the whole route.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah,
that's a good idea. What a good idea.
Yeah, this would all be shot on smartphones, like you know, just kind of an iPhone Pro or something like that, which is what I did for the shoot in October that Martin did. So that it's also like the technology is such that you can hire a 4K quality camera now for what about 50 quid or something, and use it over a weekend. So having, I'll need about sort of 30 people to cover the entire 26 miles. But now that is it's now feasible to hire 30, you know, iPhone Pros for, you know, what would be like, what would that be? That would be about £1,500, wouldn't it? So you can imagine financing it all yourself now, a shoot on that scale. So it's also to do with the way that the technology has become just more and more available, especially over the past 5 years. You know, I shoot it all at 4K at 60 frames a second, which should give me enough poses to choose from to be able to build that entire animated sequence. So it should end up about 4 or 5 minutes long.
Did you choose the poses yourself, or did you say that there is software recognition that you used?
I don't think there it will be possible to use any fancy AI recognition. I've spoken to a few, one or two scientists who'd say, "Oh yeah, we can do that," but I think that I'm not convinced that it would. I'll talk to a few more people nearer the time, but I'm not convinced that image recognition software has advanced to that degree, and I suspect I will end up doing it by hand. And I suspect the project's not going to be fundable either. So I expect I will just have to probably do it all myself. I can't think of anything apart from like a Kickstarter campaign to actually get it
running
from it. Sorry.
The walk cycle sequences that you had worked really well, and also the section that Martin said as well, where you kept on the same pose of each person, so it just looked like they were up in the air.
Yeah. So I think it would be able to improve that as I've sort of collected footage over the past couple of years, but it will be, you know, for like sort of it's going to be a very sort of unless I hire, you know, 30 or 40 animators, it is gonna, we're talking about, you know, several years, I think, from now. Even, you know, it's even going to take another couple of years to shoot the rest of the London Marathon, especially the final 200 meters.
Is Emma waving?
I'm trying to say something. To me, it looks like a really easy job, actually. All you need to do is just go through the footage. You know what a walk cycle's like, or run cycle.
It's time consuming, though.
I know it's time consuming, but you don't want people looking like they're in the air, do you? Don't you want them to look like they're just running?
Well, that example was to see what it would look like if I got someone jumping through the air or leaping an enormous, you know, kind of fantasy kung fu style leap through the air. So I was experimenting with those kinds of movements. So that's why it sort of looks frozen. But the beginning and the end of that jump is kind of fudged. So probably the leap and the landing doesn't really come across that well.
But it just seems like the simplicity of the idea is just to have a sort of continuous run that just subtly changes, depending on the age and the physique of the people that are doing the running. That is just, it's a sort of a mechanical process going through the footage and just say, you know, just having a system, you know, how many frames do I need to describe, you know, a run, and then choose if it's going to be five frames on doubles or 4 frames or all on singles, you know, maybe 9 frames on singles, just choosing the pace and then thinking, well, you know, what is it that I really want to explore from that run, and the sort of the fact that the whole of London gets together in a sense to do that. You know, I think you could fund it if you had the right proposal, and if you thought about, you know, the way it might work with a soundtrack or music or whatever. And it's the sort of thing that would be a very good exercise for students. You know, you just get students to, as part of a project, to see what they could do with sections of the footage in terms of making up the runs. And it depends on the dynamic you want. Do you want the dynamic to be consistent? Do you want it, you know, as you say, you're doing magical leaps?
It's not gonna a simple run, a basic run, I don't think is going to sustain for a 4 or 5 minute film. So that's why I'm experimenting with leaping and walking and different kinds of effects. So that the style of run or movement is going to sort of all be line tested first, and then that will be the basis or template for actually building the stop frame animation. It is something that I use as part of a stop frame animation class that I have, but the prospect of I feel almost like guilty subjecting a student to, like, you know, days and days of like searching.
But most of them can't do walk cycles or run cycles, can they?
I suppose they would. They would like, but it's almost like learning a walk cycle as a form of punishment, I think.
But you've inflicted this on yourself.
Well, I'm talking about if I inflicted it on students.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, what's his name in Hong Kong inflicts his work on his students and makes them do it. You know, maybe.
Well, Bob used to do that as well, getting his students to draw Henry's cat, didn't he?
Okay, well, I guess animation is.
And they used to pay him to do it.
Oh, did he?
Whichever way you look at it, really.
They paid Bob to work on Henry's cat.
They paid Bob.
Yeah, he used to put an ad in the newspaper for people who wanted to learn how to do animation.
Oh, I see. Because
then they would pay Bob for a course, and he would get them to practice on in betweening Henry's cat. But anyway,
this story about him going down to Farnham or somewhere and actually and his sort of his hosts of going out and coming back a bit later and finding he got the whole class to start drawing Henry's cat for him as part of, you know, no payment involved.
Well, I think with Richard, I mean, I don't think you want to be too complicated about it, and actually maybe you're underestimating the strength of the idea.
Okay.
You know, that actually the strength of the idea is not doing anything too wacky.
Well,
because actually the strength of the idea is that all these people coming together are running. They're not leaping like gazelles, are they? They're just running. And that is what's interesting about it. And to, you know, and in a sense, the craft and the labor is also part of what it's about, isn't it? It has both those elements. I don't know, it's up to you. I mean, you're the animator, but seems to me like, you know, something that you could get Arts Council funding for. I would just apply for a 15 grand Arts Council grant for it.
What occurs to me, Richard, is also it's a sort of thing that the BBC, I can imagine them kind of ripping it off for idents for their coverage of the London. Do you know what I mean? It is such a good idea. I wonder if you could go to them and I don't know, get them to pay for it in return for some idents.
Wow, I failed to get them to engage them in a conversation about getting access to the track. So
right.
It seems, you know, it's a kind of an opaque organization to try and engage unless you have
to know someone.
You'd need a champion who was known and could like open those doors, I think. Audition for a champion.
I felt a bit bad because where I was doing the course, it was near the end, and I was a bit slow in filming because I did that whole thing, Richard, of going to the spot, filming for whatever it was, 30 seconds, then moving on, and I was just really, really slow. So by the time I was reaching the end of my bit, there weren't very many people running, so I'd have to wait till you got a solitary, straggler, and then sometimes there was no one there. So I phoned up Richard quite a few times and said, Richard, what do I do? There's no one bloody here. And Richard very patiently said, just film anyway, even if there's no one there, just carry on filming. So I was, for the whole last bit, I don't think there were very many people at all. But,
I made Martin finish his mile for not moving fast enough.
Yeah.
Had to finish his mile, whatever.
But it was really funny. Whenever a straggler went past, It must have been the kind of, you know, the message of that event, because everyone would shout, "You got this!" just over and over again. "You got this!" I mean, it was that kind of.
They all have their names like emblazoned on their running vests, and so people shout out, "Come on, Pete! Come on, Sarah!" And you get the impression that they're all a big family and they all know each other, but no, they just got the big name like Pete, Sarah on there. And there's apps now, so you can track people, so you can see when they're coming past, when your wife or husband is coming past, then say there's 30 seconds time, and so people get ready to shout out, "Hey, come on, and you only 20 miles to go." So it's getting more high tech, especially after COVID, when they've trying to sort of get people to interact more through apps and online rather than being there. So in October, they tried to tell everyone to stay away, or this kind of very fudged messages about, well, you can come and spectate, you can come and to the public. Come up to the track, but we'd rather you didn't. We'd rather you stayed at home and watched it on television.
Come that far up a bit, Julie.
Nobody took any notice, of course, and it was pretty much just as crowded as it ever was this year.